In 2024, while Don Cobain was in the hospital, he discovered that the patient next to him was a Kurt Cobain fan. When the man talked about Kurt, Don couldn't hold back and started crying. "Everyone thinks they know him, but no one knows the real Kurt. Even I didn't know him." His last words still echo in my ears. This spontaneous breakdown pushed 77-year-old Don to reveal the truth he had suppressed for 30 years. When Aberdeen Times journalist Julie Morrison interviewed Don in the hospital, dark details about Kurt's death that had never been known came to light. But Don's confessions would show how toxic the father-son relationship was, and that Kurt's desperation in his final days was just the beginning. Don Cobain was being treated for cardiac arrhythmia at Grays Harbor Community Hospital in March 2024. The 77-year-old Don had been living alone for years, rarely accepting visitors. He avoided talking to other patients in the hospital. Don's life in Aberdeen had become extremely isolated. Neighbors rarely saw him, and he even did his grocery shopping during the quietest hours. Being known as Kurt's famous father had become a burden for him. "Kurt's fans sometimes take pictures in front of my house," Don says, "but I can't talk to them because everything they know about Kurt is a lie." For his first days in the hospital, Don tried to remain quiet. Nurses offered him emotional support, but Don refused every time. "I haven't talked to anyone for 30 years. Why should I start now?" he would say. In the bed next to Don was Rick Davies, a 45-year-old musician. Rick was a huge fan of grunge music and had started making music particularly influenced by Nirvana. Rick's reason for being in the hospital was stress-induced stomach ulcers. His music career was struggling and he was having financial difficulties. But Nirvana's music always gave him hope. In the first days, Don and Rick only had polite conversations. When Rick heard Don's last name, he didn't connect it to Kurt. Cobain is a common surname in Aberdeen. "I'm a local musician too," Rick said. "Grunge music really influenced me, especially Nirvana and Kurt Cobain." Don tensed when he heard that name but tried not to react. Rick didn't notice and continued talking. On the third day, Don's attention was caught by the music coming from Rick's headphones. "Come As You Are" was playing and Rick was singing along. Don began trembling when he heard that melody. His hands were sweating, his heart rate was accelerating. That song was one of Kurt's most famous works. When Rick turned up the music, Don couldn't take it. "Please turn that off." Rick was surprised. "Sorry, don't you like Nirvana?" Don couldn't answer. Rick understood from Don's reaction that he wasn't a Kurt fan and apologized. But Rick couldn't stop talking about music. Kurt Cobain was a real genius. His music wasn't just grunge, it became the voice of an entire generation. "I wish I had the chance to meet him." These words deeply affected Don. The phrase, "chance to meet him," stung his conscience. Rick continued, "We know very little about Kurt's father. Don Cobain seems to have chosen to stay very quiet." "I respect that." The words, "chose to stay quiet," pierced Don's heart like a dagger. Rick's innocent comment had an earthquake effect on Don. Don finally couldn't take it anymore and decided to speak. "I'm Don Cobain. I'm Kurt's father." Rick was shocked. There were a few seconds of silence, then Rick got very excited, but could tell from Don's expression that something was wrong. "I'm so sorry," Rick said. "It must be very difficult. You must miss Kurt a lot." Don's eyes filled with tears. "I don't miss him. I never knew him. That's the problem." Rick was surprised. Don's voice began to break. "Everyone thinks they know Kurt, but no one knows the real Kurt, including me." Don broke his 30-year silence in the hospital room. "When Kurt spoke to me for the last time, he asked for help, but I didn't listen to him. In fact, I did something worse." Rick was listening carefully. A nurse came to check, but quietly left the room when she saw Don talking. Don continued, "In early April 1994, Kurt called me. I couldn't understand how desperate he was at the time." Don remembers that phone conversation in detail. Kurt spoke with a very tired and hopeless voice. "Dad, I can't do it anymore," he said. "I knew at the time that Kurt was struggling with drug problems, but I underestimated his mental state. I thought I would use a tough love approach." Don's response that day is still a source of regret. "I told him, 'Man up, Kurt. Life is hard for everyone.' I said, Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Kurt had tried to open up to his father Don in that conversation. Kurt told me that his relationship with Courtney was toxic, that the music industry was consuming him. Most importantly, he said he was afraid he couldn't be a good father to Frances. "I don't want to mess up her life like mine was messed up," he said. Don couldn't grasp the significance of these words at the time. "I thought he was just being dramatic. I thought tough love would strengthen him." Don's response was devastating. "I told Kurt, stop making excuses. You have everything: fame, money, family. Figure it out yourself." I hung up the phone. That phone conversation became a turning point in Don's life. When I heard Kurt was dead the next day, I realized our last words were an argument. Don remembers that day and after. Police, media, everyone was asking questions, but I didn't share the last conversation with Kurt with anyone. I was too ashamed. The years following Kurt's death were torture for Don. Every documentary, every tribute, every anniversary reminded me of how I failed him. Don tried going to therapy but was afraid to share the family secret even with therapists. In small-town Aberdeen, there was a risk to confidentiality. In the 2000s, Nirvana's legacy grew, but Don became increasingly reclusive. Even seeing Kurt posters at the grocery store was painful. Don's relationship with Frances Bean was complicated. I wanted to spend time with her, but Kurt's absence overshadowed every interaction. When Frances asked Don questions about Kurt, Don would give evasive answers. What could I tell her? Your dad needed help and I rejected him? In the 2000s, Don developed health problems: blood pressure, heart issues, health decline caused by stress. Don chose social isolation. Being known as Kurt's dad in Aberdeen was a burden. Everyone expected me to be proud, but I was devastated. In recent years, Don rarely visited Kurt's grave. Looking at the headstone, I would remember our last conversation. Too painful. Don's daily life had become routine. I would wake up in the morning, make coffee, watch television. When news about Kurt came on, I would change the channel. Neighbors had begun worrying about Don's condition. He doesn't go shopping, doesn't accept visitors, he was living like a ghost. The Aberdeen local newspaper tried to interview Don, but he refused every time. "I have nothing to say about Kurt," he would say. The conversation with Rick in the hospital was cathartic for Don. After 30 years, I finally had the chance to tell someone the truth. Rick was supportive. "Don, everyone makes mistakes. You couldn't have known." But Don accepted responsibility. Maybe I couldn't predict suicide, but there were signs. I chose to ignore them. Don told Rick more details from Kurt's childhood. After the divorce, Kurt became very angry. I was trying to focus on starting a new life. Kurt showed creativity and sensitivity, but I expected masculine behavior. I didn't take his music seriously. Don's parenting approach was problematic. I focused on discipline instead of emotional support. I saw Kurt's artistic nature as weakness. High school years were particularly difficult. Kurt's grades dropped, he isolated himself from friends. I responded with punishment instead of understanding. Don didn't support Kurt's early music career. I saw becoming a rock star as an unrealistic dream. I wanted him to find a practical job. Nirvana's success surprised Don but didn't repair their relationship. Fame made Kurt even more distant. I didn't make an effort to understand him. Don felt emotional relief after his hospital confession. 30 years of weight was lifted, but guilt still remains. Rick encouraged Don to share his story with the public. Maybe your experience will help other fathers understand their sons better. Don agreed to an interview with Aberdeen Times. If my failure can prevent one father from making the same mistake, Kurt's death can have meaning. In the interview, Don gave specific advice to fathers. Listen to your children even when you don't understand them. Support their dreams even if they seem unrealistic. Most importantly, never reject them when they ask for help. After that phone call, Kurt never reached out again. Don gave a message to modern parenting. Mental health struggles are real. Toxic masculinity approach is dangerous. Emotional support is critical. The Aberdeen community had mixed reactions to Don's confession. Some people were supportive, others judgmental. But I had to speak the truth. Frances Bean reconnected with Don after the interview. She thanked me for finally being honest. She said it helped her understand family dynamics better. Don's current status is peaceful but regretful. After leaving the hospital, I started therapy. The healing process is long but necessary. Don's final message is powerful. Kurt was a sensitive soul and creative genius. I should have protected him instead of rejecting him. Fathers, please learn from my mistake. Your children need your understanding, not your judging. Fathers, please learn from my mistake. Your children need your understanding, not your judgment. Don't let pride destroy relationships. Don makes plans for the future. When Frances's baby is born, I'll tell them Kurt's beautiful memories, not the negative things, but his creativity and loving side. Aberdeen Mental Health Center invited Don as a volunteer. I can share my experience in family counseling sessions. I can prevent other families from experiencing the same tragedies. Don now visits Kurt's grave on his birthday. This year I didn't cry at his grave for the first time. Instead of apologizing, I told him I loved him. Don decided to renovate his house in Aberdeen. I'm throwing away old things, stopping keeping Kurt's room like a museum. This will be a living house. Kurt's old bedroom will now be a guest room. I'm organizing his things instead of throwing them away. Let Frances and her grandchild be comfortable when they come. Don's neighbor relations improved. I didn't talk to anyone for 30 years, but now we greet each other on the street. People understand me now. The Aberdeen local newspaper offered Don a column. I can write about family relationships and mental health. My experience can be helpful to people. Don's first newspaper article caused a great stir. His article titled "The Art of Listening to Your Child" was read by thousands of people. Don has plans to write a book. I want to tell my story in more detail. Maybe other fathers won't make the same mistakes. Don's story was also heard in Seattle. The University of Washington Psychology Department invited him to a conference. Don said at the conference, "Toxic masculinity destroys men and their families. Emotional intelligence is not anti-masculine, it's a necessity." Don's therapy process continues, but he now also receives group therapy. Talking to other fathers in the same situation is very healing. Don Cobain's 30-year silence has finally been broken. The true dimensions of the father-son tragedy have emerged. Don's confession illuminated the emotional loneliness Kurt experienced in his final days. That spontaneous confession in the hospital room finally freed Don, but it was too late for Kurt's memory. Don's story is a heartbreaking reminder of the importance of family support, especially during mental health crises.